Hello. This is
No.
Martha. Hi. This is Martha Hines with Living the One Light. And today I'm interviewing Louise Edington, who is an astrologer and an author. She's putting out her second book called The Complete Guide to Astrology, Understanding Yourself, Your Signs, and Your Birth Charts. And Louise has been studying and practicing astrology for 30 years, and she writes daily astrology posts that guide readers through their lives. And I read those. I love them. They're often very funny and off color and direct. Have a lot of personality and have a lot of heart. That's one thing I love about you, is that you're so strident in your opinions, and at the same time you're so centered in your compassion and your love, and that's a wonderful combination.
Thank you.
And her main passion is in helping clients to regain a deep connection with the cycles of the universe so that they may find acceptance and self-awareness. And it's great. I had a reading with Louise and I loved it, and it helped me push to channel 3 books since that session, which was last spring, because you told me do it, and I said all right. And I did it. Yay.
I'm good at getting people to do things.
Yeah.
I'm good at lifting them out of there. Oh.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, today we wanted to talk a bit about, I wanted to hear more about your perspective on this change that's happening on our planet. And people are saying that we're entering the Age of Aquarius, and there's a lot of different perspectives on what that would mean, or what this awakening period is, or what is going on around here. Because the way I see it is that, there's always been crisis on the planet, but it's particularly, there's a different flavor to it for me, at least at this moment, and it's especially strong and in our faces. And and then I find it so interesting that at the same time there's all this crisis, there's also all this spiritual awakening and people suddenly connecting to this bigger picture. So yeah, I would love to hear what do you think is happening?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, we definitely are shifting astrological ages, but it's probably even to complete. It's a centuries long process, but we're kind of at one of the peak points of the shift into the age now. I don't think there's any definite date. Some astrologers say it's when Pluto will enter Aquarius, and some have got other dates. I don't think we can be that definite. I think we're still going to be in this shifting time for all our lives, personally. But shifts into new astrological ages happen about every 2,600 years, and they are quite defined. We're coming out of the age of Pisces, which is the age of the fishes, and it's been the age of Christianity and the Abrahamic religions, quite evidently. And the precession of the ages always goes backwards. So before that we had the age of Eris, and then before that we had the age of Taurus, and that was when bull was that. So you can see quite defining, because Taurus is symbolized by the bull. Oh, my connection's unstable. Bear with me a second. Okay, so each age does have defining qualities. However, I don't think we can really know what the age of Aquarius is going to be like. We can guess, and we can look at the indicators that are happening. And part of what I see happening is, a lot of the emphasis of the book itself is written from non-binary language. It's about changing the language. Aquarius is an air sign. It's very much to do with the mental, higher mental capacities and thinking new ideas and things like that, and looking at things in a new way. It's very inventive. technology is going to develop even faster than we ever thought possible. We think it's already happened, but oh my goodness, I think it's gonna go way beyond what we can even imagine. But a lot of, and I talk about this in the book, it came to me while I was writing the book, which I'm convinced I didn't really write, but there we go. That, the symbol for Aquarius is two waves. And quantum theory is really developing in science. Now, I'm not an expert on science, so this is kind of a layman's thing, but it just came through me that quantum wave theory, the connectedness of everything, wave theory says that, if I kind of go like that, something happens somewhere else. And that's kind of what to me the coming age of Aquarius is going to be. People are realizing, or really, we've talked about, we're all connected and things, but people are really beginning to feel that we're all connected, and that we're connected with everything that is,
Right.
Yeah, so that's in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And how do you a lot of astrologers are talking about the year 2020 as being this massive shift or transitional year. What's your take on the year 2020?
Oh, it's huge. Since I remember looking ahead to 2020 when I first decided to become a professional astrologer. I'd kind of studied astrology and played with it as a hobby for many years, but I looked ahead, and this pile up in Capricorn that we've just had, we've had this major conjunction, and I won't go into all the technicals of it, is really a tipping point, because the lineup has really never happened before. The last time that Saturn and Pluto were conjunct in Capricorn, which is the main kind of cycle that's ended and started, with Jupiter in Capricorn, was in 1284. The time before that was 1894 BC. The last time that all three of those were in Capricorn, and Uranus was in Taurus, which it is now, was in 38 BC.
Wow.
And back then we didn't know Pluto existed. We didn't know Eris existed, because it's all squaring Eris in Aries right now. She's one of the new dwarf planets who's kind of changing our perceptions of the whole cosmos. And we didn't know Uranus existed back then. So, and we were not moving into the age of Aquarius. So,
right.
So everything's kind of come together in this perfect storm, if you like. But it's been building. Pluto's been in Capricorn for about 15 years now. We've seen our institutions start to crumble. We've seen the rot begin to be exposed. But we've also seen good things uncovered. Like you said, people are discovering the importance of kind of deep soul work, and there's always the collapse and the rebuilding, a bit like the Tower card in the tarot.
Yeah. And then what's your, we were talking earlier about and you mentioned the role of or I should say a developing approach to gender dynamics, and I'm curious to hear more about your perspective on the role of gender as we're moving through taking down the patriarchy, hopefully, and the fact that your book talks a lot about creating a non-binary approach to astrology, and the fact that we need to not genderize things in polarities, and think more about energies as opposed to things being feminine versus masculine and so forth. So I don't know if you want to just give an overview, and then we could talk more about the details of all that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, well, it's a big subject, but the word astrology itself is the language of the stars. And so, man has been trying, or humankind has been trying to make sense of it all since language was developed. So our language has shaped how we see the world, based on the world around us, not just the cycles. So it's a combination of both. But what came through when I was writing the book was that, because I was asked to write the book for everybody, because a lot of older astrology basic books say, this is masculine, this is feminine. It's just like, and we all have every sun, every planet, and every planetary body, and every sign within us. We all have, so we're a combination of everything. Some veer more towards what I've called day energy, which is integrating an ancient technique into modern astrology. And day energy is what's generally been called masculine. It's, action oriented, it's very doing, it's very out there, and very outward oriented. And then, but night energy is also within all of us, and that's what's generally been called feminine. And to tell somebody, you say I get a client, and I personally, my own chart, people have looked at it and gone, oh, you've got a very masculine chart. Well,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I have, but how is that helpful to help you to understand yourself? It's kind of, I just think the language needs to change. And, as we move into the age of Aquarius, pansexuality, all kinds of shades of sexuality itself is, I wouldn't say it's on the rise. I say it's more becoming more open. People are able to express that. And this is not taking away anything from people who see themselves as fully male or fully female. It's just saying, you have feelings, even if you're a male, which is very night energy, very emotional, receptive. And if you're see yourself very much as a female, you still have this day energy as well as part of you that needs to be out there doing things and active. So that's kind of as much as I can put it in a small box.
Yeah. And then one thing I found so interesting, I was mentioning to you in your book, is that you, on the one hand, you're emphasizing the non-binary nature of the signs, and at the same time, you're also talking about the mythology associated with the planetary bodies. So I'm just curious. You seem to be okay with the fact that there is a mythology around, say, Venus as a feminine being.
Yeah.
So how does that play in for you?
Well, I see her more as night energies, so not really feminine. And my point really with the mythology is that humankind rather, I should say, keep saying, is that we have created these mythologies and stories, and so we can only see it in those terms. It's really hard for us to imagine it anywhere any different. So, and that's okay, because as long as you see it as a representative of part of us, because it's my belief that all mythologies and all these gods and goddesses represent a part of us, so we all have Venus. So it doesn't mean that she is this binary woman kind of figure necessarily. And even looking at the planets, it's if you look at Venus herself, to use her as an example, she's been portrayed by our language, by humankind's language, as this almost kind of sappy, peaceful, sweet kind of energy. And the actual planet herself is a big ball of fire.
I love that. I saw that you pointed that out at one point. It's hilarious.
And and Pluto has a heart. And Mars has water. So, even the planets are not that distinctively masculine or feminine. So let's kind of just
Right.
my attempt is to just introduce other language that's kind of more inclusive, so people who feel kind of in between somewhere, it's speaking to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and what's been coming through me, as I was saying to you, is this my latest book called Love Speaks, and it is so interesting to me because I am ardently feminist and totally support, non-binary approaches to life, all of that. And at the same time, I'm channeling all these things about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And my next book is going to be called The Goddesses Speak. And then the one after that is going to be called The Gods Speak. And this is all channeled. So I'm not choosing these names. It's being told to me. But The Goddesses Speak is going to be basically breaking down the divine feminine into all different sides of her. And then the God Speak will be breaking down the divine masculine into all sides of him. And then in Love Speaks, another part of what's coming through is, inside of ourselves, and then in our relationships, and then in the world, how do we help these parts of our divine feminine and our divine masculine to sit with each other, deeply forgive each other, and love each other unconditionally. How do we heal, like one way I see the divine feminine is, let's say, the earth herself, right?
Yeah.
And then the divine masculine being, or the distorted masculine being the patriarchy, so how do we even sit with our relationship to the planet Earth, being the divine feminine, in a way that can promote deep, real healing? Anyway, it's a complicated set of things coming through me, but it's definitely not, I wouldn't say non-binary. Like, it's definitely fleshing out the poles of the genders. Does that make sense?
Yes,
so I'm trying to
and I think essentially we're really doing the same thing. It's just because astrology is a language, and people come to a reading or work with an astrologer with this whole concept of what masculine is. I feel it's helpful as an astrologer to change the language, but there's undoubtedly, there are still masculine and feminine parts. We are still, so I think kind of a combination of kind of the work that's channeling through you and the stuff that came through me is really going to help us move forward in this. Just realizing that we have to bring this all together to heal. So,
and another thing I've been feeling a lot over the last months or year is how, what I love about astrology also is that it helps us to, it's almost like doing like yoga. Like we get to stretch into every part of ourselves, right? Like there's the Pallas Athena part of us, and then there's this part of us, and then there's the Mars part of us. It's so refreshing to me to feel in my body every one of those archetypes. And I try to explain to people, this is not about your sun sign. No, don't say, look, don't say I am a Leo. Say, yes, you absolutely have all the Leo qualities because you have very prominent Leo in your chart or whatever it is. But I love the idea of helping people to come fully into every one of those archetypes.
Me too.
And
to realize that, going back to Venus as the example, Venus is given rulership of two signs. She's given rulership of Taurus and Libra, and Libra is an air sign, which has traditionally been described as masculine, and Taurus has been described as feminine, because it's the most earthly sign. And so Venus, it's how these planets express themselves in the signs as well, that so it's all very well saying, well, my Venus is in that, but what does it mean? You know, it means your Venus expresses itself in a more kind of day action oriented, probably more masculine kind of way, which could also be described as the morning star Venus.
Beautiful.
We have either morning and evening star depending on the cycle of Venus. So I don't think anything in the cosmos, as I wrote this book, it came through, I was just like, nothing is that binary completely, because it's each planet is in a sign, everything's, you know, everything's modified by something else.
Right. And I also love when I feel into the energies of, you know, the different planets, just how, of course, they blend. And I love thinking of it as in the cosmos, we have every planetary body and everything is literally emitting energy and vibrations. And then when we look at the chart, it's like watching all the vibrations blend with each other. And it's so fun. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. So, you know,
right.
to quote Jason Holly, who kind of gave me some of the ideas for the book, and he's done a great endorsement. He's a great astrologer too. It's asking people to kind of take this more diffuse gaze to themselves through the chart, you know, rather than saying I am all this or I am all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want to back up and give the background a bit about how you got into this and how you came to write these two books and how you got into astrology?
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually, I'd always been interested in astrology, but really just sun sign stuff. You know, I've got stuff I wrote when I was 13 that about sun signs and things. I've still got these bits of paper in my childish handwriting. But when I hit my first Saturn return, actually at age 29, a friend of mine had done some astrology classes, and she created my chart. This is back before we had software. We had to hand calculate them. And she did a little reading for me, and I was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. So she was a very generous friend. In fact, this book's dedicated to her, and she helped me learn how to hand calculate charts, and she gave me some books, and then I kind of dived into everything, teaching myself. But it was more kind of, for a long time I practiced on friends and their children and stuff, but it was more like describing the personality of the chart. And then when we moved to the States, we moved here in 2008, I kind of got involved in the coaching world, and I got to know a lot of people who were using tools to help them with their coaching. And one friend in particular did hand analysis as coaching. And I was like, I could be doing astrology as part of this. Eventually I left the coaching world per se, but I guess part of what I do is coaching. But and anyway, I decided to become a professional astrologer. I took one-on-one classes for 2 years with an apprentice of Stephen Forrest, who's kind of one of the grandfathers of astrology. And I took some other classes, and I continue to take classes to this day. But I did all of my teacher, Maridel Bowes, as levels. So I kind of did her complete course. And that was modern astrology, known as evolutionary astrology. And I just dived in, and I learned something new every day. It suits my it's my passion. It's a big rabbit hole. There's always more to learn, which kind of really suits my energy. And so I just love it. And then I've also always loved writing, but I'm not what I would call a creative writer. I'm not a fiction writer. That's not that kind of writing. And I started writing daily about astrology, and it grew, and I really decided I was going to declare myself a writer. So I started writing daily blog posts, which was quite a lot to do. I've kind of eased back on that a little bit and doing more video now, because I want to write some more in-depth posts. And the publisher found me. And for my first book, they approached me. I almost trashed the email because they were like, would you be interested in writing a book? And I don't know about you, Martha, but I've had emails that say, would you be interested in writing a chapter in a book, but you have to pay this much money? And yeah, all that stuff.
No thanks.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But something about this email, I wrote back and said, please don't tell me this is one of those.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we're a serious publisher, we pay our writers. So anyway, I did a sample piece of writing, and I wrote the first book, Modern Astrology, which was published in November 2018, and that's it's got a similar approach, but less from the non-binary perspective. But that book also brought in my shamanism and my other practices, because I gave people tools to kind of integrate the energy into their soul, basically, in every chapter, or to work with the energy. And then they approached me again to write this second book. So, and by the way, the first one was a bestseller.
I know.
And it's still right up there.
So great.
I know. And so they approached me about writing another one. And this one, I was only given 6 weeks to write it. And it just went flooded out. And it was the easiest thing I've ever written.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know.
Well, it's very clear, very to the point, gives all the, you synthesize so much material, boom, right there.
That's why I don't think it was me that did it. Well, it's partly me, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Can you share more about your shamanism or any of your spiritual background or anything else that you...
Yeah, sure. Well, I've studied a lot of things and practices, but I did a year-long shamanic practitioner training in core shamanism. So I have a membership site, a little bit like Patreon, only it's my own. And with my groups and my group work, we do a lot of shamanic journey work and shamanic healing work as part of the work I do with them on a monthly basis. And I find that helps people to integrate the energies as well. I'm kind of diving deeper into that. I recently went to a training by Patricia Walsh, another great astrologer and shamanic person, and called Kairos Astrology, where I'll be dealing with more with the past life stuff as well in the chart. I like to, well, it says on my book about helping them to regain a deep connection. I find that, using the shamanic tools, and I use other tools like morning pages, I get people doing things like that as well, helps them to feel the energies instead of just this intellectual Mars in whatever means this in your chart. So,
Yeah. And what are the basic differences between shamanic astrology and evolutionary astrology?
Oh, well, they're merged, really. They're entangled. Evolutionary astrology is kind of a specific practice that was created by Jeffrey Wolf Green and Stephen Forrest to a degree. We both have slightly different approaches, but they work together a lot on it. And it believes in the or evolution of the soul. We're born with this this birth chart, but as the planets move throughout our lives, it's kind of like this evolutionary spiral as the cycles impact different areas of our chart. So we're not born with this like static personality. We're born with this growth potential and a soul purpose, and so that's kind of in a nutshell what evolutionary astrology is. And then the shamanic astrology is very much about working with the living cosmos and looking up at the sky and or in my case journeying to the sky to feel it within you, and so I kind of combine them both. I've never studied shamanic astrology. This is how I've just kind of come to naturally integrate it myself. So I don't know if anybody can. There is a shamanic astrology mystery school, and they do great work, but I think I've come at it from a different perspective. So,
and so yeah, I'd love to hear more about traveling. I didn't realize you experienced the traveling into the cosmos. I mean, I do all the time. my last book is called Cosmos Speaks. I literally went up into the cosmos and channeled from there. Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what's that experience like for you.
I need to read that one. Well, I just do it all the time, and I have my clients do it. You know, if I like, for example, I did a session, and I hadn't really started integrating it into sessions when you had your session, but it became clear that Chiron in her chart was a really important planet right now, or place. And it was really important for her soul's evolution. So I had her journey to Chiron, and you know, I do it, and I ask my clients to do it. I just ask them to have a conversation with the energy, and trust what they get, and trust what it looks like, and that's far more meaningful than me saying your Chiron means this. Yeah,
because the energies are energies, and they can come through in any way that is needed to come through. Absolutely. Totally fits. I think the next two books, like I said before, are going to be that I'm writing are The Goddesses Speak and The Gods Speak, and I think it's essentially going to be that is the energies of different goddesses and different gods / planets. I don't know, I think are going to be channeling their something. It's not me writing it, so I don't know.
It's kind of funny. I have a similar thing in, and each will have its own message. I think I have a similar book. I kind of know that I have to write, and a lot of it's to do with some of these newer energies in the charts. Eris, for example, you know, I already know that she's kind of this hermaphrodite androgynous creature in my book, and I'm going to have to.
Wow. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, I know. Time, isn't it? Sometimes you have to like when you're marketing another book, it's hard to.
No, I know. Yeah, well, and Eris is precisely opposite my Pluto.
Oh,
like to the degree. And so Eris has been really playing out in my and my progressed moon just conjuncted my natal Eris.
Oh.
So I've really been thinking a lot about Eris.
Yeah. And you do know that Eris kind of displaced Pluto from the realm of.
No.
Her discovery in 2006 led to Pluto being demoted from planet to dwarf planet. Yeah.
That's hilarious. What?
And that's what, I mean, she shook up the whole astronomical community, because now we have this new definition of dwarf planet, and new dwarf planets are being discovered daily. And thanks to Eris.
That's amazing. I think you were the first person to point out that Eris essentially is my Pluto polarity point, and then Kaipacha pointed it out to me too. And then it was like, you're supposed to do this nice, sweet, airy fairy channeling, but oh no, you're also supposed to like shake up the world and tell the truth.
Exactly.
Yep. I'm on it. I'm doing it.
whereas Pallas Athena will be in my book too, because she is exactly conjunct my ruling planet Jupiter, hence the owl, and hence why my business is now called Cosmic Owl Astrology, because she's just become so prominent in my chart too. So
I love that. Yeah. I love the asteroids. I love all.
Yeah.
They're so awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So I think my last question is, what is your goal? If you had a goal for our planet, or a goal for humanity or a goal for your clients, what would be the number one wish or prayer you would have?
Well, for clients, I really want them to just be able to see their own potential, you know, and strip off kind of the tethers of patriarchal societal messages that we've been given all our lives, and to be able to really reach for the soul's potential. So, you know, I have big goals for my for my clients. Like you said, I said, do you just go do it with the books? You know, I have clients who has got an amazingly successful photography business now because she's wonderfully talented, and she was going to give it up, you know, because she wasn't making any money at it. You know, so I'm kind of the cheerleader for my clients' potential, really, so they can break the chains that we're all kind of tethered by, of you can't do this, or it's too much, or you shouldn't do this, all these limiting beliefs, you know. But for the planet, I really want to help people to realize that we are connected to everything. And, you know, that whole wave theory, that whole, you know, if I do this, it affects something else. Everything we do affects something else, not in this guilt way, but learning that we need to move back into alignment. And I do have this great belief that the Age of Aquarius, because it's ruled by both Saturn and Uranus, traditionally and modern astrology, and it's got this weird mix of conservatism and futurism, the actual sign itself. And I've long said that we're bringing back in the best of the ancient wisdom, which is happening with the rise of shamanism and things, but we're bringing it in a very new way, so that it fits the world we're in now. So that's what I want for the world.
Wonderful. And I thought of one more very important question that I know people are going to be wondering who are watching this. Given the massive transformational nature of this year, what advice would you have for people as we're going through all these transits?
Well, yeah, I think the overall message for an individual is that we're really being asked to grow up and take responsibility for creating and building our own security and our own lives, and not relying that the man is going to give it. That doesn't mean that we can't create a governing system that supports those that need support. But for those that are able, we're really being asked to grow up and just stop being so passive and letting the world happen to us. So.
Yeah, I feel like we're being asked to grow up on every level, internally, in our communities, in our whole world. Like, do it. Let's just do it.
Just wake up and stop. You know. Also, I think we're being asked to pare down a bit and ask what our real core values are, and not be so materialistic. And
I've been seeing that coming. I don't know if you've been saying that, or who. I feel like a number of people in my sphere have been saying this, and I've been thinking about this a lot with the prosperity consciousness. You know, that when I pray, and actually in that Cosmos Speaks book, there's a chapter on money and resources, but what I keep being shown is prosperity idea is not about having, you know, like a bag of gold sitting next to you and, you know,
hoarding.
It's not, that's not at all what I see. What I see is very clearly that we just need to come into an ebb and a flow that's even and equal and balanced. And that could mean having very little. In reality, we don't need very much.
No.
You know?
But it also doesn't necessarily mean that you just have to give all your stuff away. It's getting in touch with what's really core to you and what you really value, I think.
That's been a really good shift for me.
Yeah, me too. I've still got too much stuff, but you know. But sometimes just giving it away, it doesn't mean it's going to go away. So I'm sifting through what I really need, what really matters, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share about what you do? Do you want to just list the basic services of what you offer and
sure,
how people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Well, my website is louiseedington.com. I offer my membership, my my Patreon. You can find that on the website, or I do consultations. I will have one basic consultation, but I'm actually going to introduce a second one that includes a shamanic journey or healing, whatever comes up in the reading, as part of it. So some people don't want it, some people do. And I do classes. I will be doing a Venus retrograde class in May and June. It'll be the third time I've done it, and it's amazing, I have to say. That was a downloaded class too. And it gets better each time I do it. So look out for that. I have a free Facebook group called Planetary Magic Cafe. My Facebook page is Cosmic Owl Astrology. I'm on Instagram. Google my name, I'm everywhere. I'm prolific on social media. And the book is published on January the 28th. So it's available for pre-order. The Kindle version is now. And if you buy it and enjoy it, please leave me a review, because reviews are everything on the algorithms. It's just the way it works. And I think that's everything. Yeah. That's it.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on, Martha. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you for everything you're doing for all of us.
And you too. I really should read your books. I've got this massive pile of unread books.
Well, yeah, they're not going anywhere. There will just be more and more and more coming.
Okay.
Thank you.